interested in politics and ran for office in the 1970s, the general issue, of course, was personal liberty and national sovereignty in our Constitution, but the specific issue was monetary policy, what they were doing to the money, because those who love big government, they love and must control the money. Because if governments were ever required to pay the bills as they spent the money, the people would rise up and object. So it is the most deceitful tax that you can have. The income tax is horrible, but the tax on the tax through inflation is even more deceptive. But politicians and proponents of big government loved inflation because they have more control. They can delay the payment. They can hide the victims until finally, you know, the whole thing falls apart. And who does it serve? Who would want this? Well, people who like war. People who want to pay for war. You know, if we had to pay every single day for all the money we spend on the wars that don't need to be fought, we'd end it. So I would say if you're anti-war and pro-liberty, we have to get rid of the Fed so they quit fighting these wars. And likewise, others like the monetary system where you inflate the currency when you can't tax anymore and you can't borrow anymore. What they do, of course, is print the money. So they love welfare. Everybody loves welfare. Who wants the welfare? So there's all these special interests in the politicians just accommodate. And they don't have to be responsible and balance the budget at all. But eventually, though, of course, it causes all these great problems. But there's quite a few good reasons why we should oppose a monetary system like this. One, it's very clearly written in our Constitution. So if we believe in the rule of law, that should be enough. So if we had more men and women of integrity in our government that would just stand up and take their oath of office seriously, this whole mess would be ended. It wouldn't even happen. For moral reasons, and that's a pretty good reason, there are even strong admonitions in the Bible about honesty and weights and measures, that you're not supposed to cheat your fellow man and by dishonest weights. And that is what the inflationary system is. In the old days, they clipped the coins or diluted the metals. Today, we just allow governments to print the money or create it in a computer. That is immoral. That is immoral, and it's equivalent to counterfeit. If you or I counterfeit, we rightfully are taken to jail and prosecuted for it. But governments, because we have allowed them to get away with it, they become the legal counterfeiters, defying morality and the Constitution. And it's time we stood up to them and said, this is an immoral, illegal, unconstitutional act, and we won't have any more of it. But above all, what this does, it really is destructive to our personal liberties. If we allow big government to grow in this sinister way, the real threat, there's economic threats, and there's war threats, and there's all these problems. But the real threat is that the more power those individuals have to create money out of thin air and create big government. Big government is the opposite of individual liberty. So the bigger the government gets, the more control they have on money, the less freedom we have. And just look at what's happened even in the last 10 or 15 years, what has been happening. Our personal liberties, our personal privacies are being diminished. The right of habeas corpus has been undermined. The whole idea of the Patriot Act, these bills and laws should be repealed, not enhanced. But right now we're facing the economic consequences, and this will get the attention of the people. And like I said, the real task is relating the problems we have today to the powers of the Federal Reserve System and why we have to have the proper changes. When governments inflate a currency, there's always a boom. People do benefit, people do feel better, and sometimes the boom can last longer than other times. The longer it lasts, the bigger the bust. And since 1971, we've had some various recessions, and some have been more serious than others, but not tremendously so, because they quickly came back in, inflated the currency, spent the money, run up the deficits, keep the wars going on, and on the surface, it looked like it was doing pretty well. At the same time, the bubble was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we were becoming more dependent on borrowing from overseas. And now we got to the point where that has all come to an end. This system is on its last legs. We will not go back to the old bubble in the stock market, the old bubble in the housing market. That has all ended, and now we have to do something about it. So what are they doing in Washington? Everything they're doing so far is absolutely opposite of what they should be doing. Right now, the attitude in Washington is everybody gets a bailout, and then pretend that they're being cautious about it. But right now, we in the Congress and the people don't even know how much is being spent. Right, you know, you've heard about the lawsuit by Bloomberg. They have filed a lawsuit against the Federal Reserve under the Freedom of Information Act, saying, look, we understand you've created $2 trillion. And we want to know who got the money and who got the benefits. But they're not going to get the information because, like I said, the Federal Reserve is protected. They don't have to give that information. $2 trillion, and even I, on the Banking Committee, on Domestic Monetary Policy Subcommittee, I have no access to this information. I can't attend the Open Market Committee meetings where all this policy is designed. And this is the problem that we have. It is so out of control. So Congress comes along, and they appropriate $700 billion. They get the first half of it, $350. They give it to the Secretary of the Treasury. He starts buying up worthless assets, and then he wonders why nobody wants it. Nobody wants them other than the taxpayers getting stuck with them because they are worthless. So we take more money. We inflate the currency to buy up worthless assets that are worthless because of the monetary system. So all the things that we're doing were the cause of the problem. We spend too much, we inflate too much, we have too much debt, and now what are we doing to try to bail everybody out? We spend more, we inflate more, and we borrow more, and it goes on endlessly, and it will not solve the problem. So the confidence will finally be lost, and we will be threatened, because there are some who believe, and I am greatly concerned, that when the problems get bad, see, I don't think the problems are that bad. One thing it leads to is there's going to be a certain group of people that won't agree with you. You might agree that you have responsibility for yourselves and assume it. What you'd like to do is get the government out of the way, let you keep what you earn, and let the government just forget about taxing you, get rid of the income tax and all the onerous regulations. But there are a lot out there still, and we just wonder where the numbers come down on that believe that we owe them a living. The people who have something owe that something else to those who don't have something, or don't work, or can't work, or whatever, and that the government's role is to redistribute the wealth. Well, that worked too for a while, because there was a lot of wealth, or at least it looked like we had a lot of wealth. But now, can you think of how many trillions and trillions of dollars of this paper wealth has been wiped off the books in the last 6 months? Everybody is probably it's been involved. They've wiped, they've lost wealth. So now, does that mean, will they automatically look to us for the answers? Not likely, because they're going to do what they've been doing, saying, you owe it to us. We deserve it. We have a right to it. And their idea of rights are a lot different than ours. We believe, of course, that we have a right to our life, we have a right to our liberty, and we have a right to keep that which we earn. Yeah. Others believe they have a right to your wealth, they have a right to a job, they have a right to free medical care, and they have a right to education. Those aren't rights, those are demands. So as this evolves and the country keeps getting poorer and the demands grow, I can foresee a time where people aren't going to be satisfied and we would end up with some violence. This should be our goal, is to avoid that. It is only through understanding that